Always a pleasure hanging out with somebody with such contagious energy and a desire to help people get healthy. That's the key. And, people have heard the saying, age is just a number, but you are the poster child for that saying. So I'm grateful to be part of your tribe. I know we're close to the same age, so we've got the same difficulties with technology, but we made it here. The millennials are laughing like, come on, all you do is press this, and you're on there. So
I know. Okay, yes, I'm seeing that we're live. So it's been an hour.
Yes. Ooh, I picked the wrong day to talk about wine's not good for the gut. I think I need a glass.
So I can't wait for you. I've been bragging about you. I can't wait for you to share your story and to tell everybody why you're here and about your books. But can you go into like the 60-second history of what happened to you?
Well, the big thing with, that's what really brings us together is the gut, how the gut has been, Hippocrates called it, he's a father of medicine, said that all disease begins in the gut. And today science has really proven that. And it goes a step further because our gut also controls our hormones, emotions, mood, memory, and even our decision making. Hence the term, what's your gut instinct telling you? And if you would hear bad news that a family member was just in a severe car accident or going in for surgery, where would you feel that pain? In your gut. That's where the term gut-wrenching news comes from. And people think love begins in the heart, but actually science shows it begins in the gut. 90% of our serotonin and 50% of our love hormone, oxytocin receptors, are in the gut, which kind of explains why you get butterflies in your stomach when you fall in love. So the key to good health is our microbiome. It's our gut. It's these group of microorganisms that live and flourish in our gut. If they aren't functioning properly, that can lead to food intolerance, obesity, irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune disease, depression, you name it, even cancer. And I experienced a lot of that firsthand because I'm a health expert. I eat right. I exercise. In 30 years, Shemaine, not one sick day at work. Not one cold, not one sinus, nothing. You show me somebody who in 30 years has never been sick. And that all ended one day when I started losing weight, started getting severe diarrhea, ended up, no joke, 50 times on the toilet a day. I lost 60 pounds, ended up in bed for 4.5 months, bedridden with no energy. And you and me are like Energizer bunnies. I was lethargic. I literally couldn't move. So anyway, went and got checked. They wanted to do a colonoscopy. Couldn't put the scope in. It was completely shut down. My colon, my gut was completely closed. He said they've never seen that in their entire history of colonoscopies. So I was sent to Chapel Hill to the specialist in GI, and he did exploratory surgery and said he's never seen it before, but I had burns in my colon. They look like chemical burns. And he had diagnosed me with advanced autoimmune disease, gave it a label called Crohn's. I said, Crohn's, that's what people get in their 12-year-old 1920. He said, oh yeah, you're the oldest we've ever seen with it. I said, well, why did I get it? I don't have a family history of it. So they always want to diagnose and adios. I wanted to know why. Why is this healthy person now sick on my deathbed, literally? We talked about how the gut affects your emotion, your mood, your memory. I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember my office manager's name of 17. I called her the brunette up at the front. I couldn't remember her name. It affected my memory, my mind. Nobody would help me. Nobody. I researched, and then the news came out that DuPont in my town of Wilmington, North Carolina, was dumping a chemical in the water supply. And it was making people sick. It was giving an autoimmune disease. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute. I was on the toilet 50 times a day, drinking water because the doctor said rehydrate. Then I couldn't eat food, so I was drinking soup made out of the water. Then I had such, excuse the TMI, hemorrhoids like you wouldn't believe. And what did he say? Soak in the water. So I'm soaking in this chemical, I'm drinking this chemical, I'm eating this chemical, but I didn't know. And now I'm thinking, no wonder I was getting worse. So I went and I had my water tested, and I brought it. This is in my water supply, okay? This is my test of water. Let me just tell you a few of these things. 1,4-dioxane causes birth defects, autoimmune disease, and cancer. Bromate, cancer. Bicarbonadiethylmethane, you can't even pronounce these things. They don't need to be in our water. None of these things. Chloroform, chromium-6, which was, you mentioned Aaron Brockovich. That was the big Aaron Brockovich thing. You think because of the movie there would be no chromium-6 in water? Folks, they found 50 states all have water, over 200 million homes. You can go to ewg.org, Environmental Working Group, and type in your zip code. You've got it. More than likely, I have it. But I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's the Gen X chemical that was dumped by DuPont. So I'm drinking this junk poison, cancers, autoimmune disease.
And you're soaking in it. And the skin is the largest organ the body has. So all of that is, you're just surrounding yourself in a toxic pool of waste.
And I didn't know. Who knew? Now, of course, I'm drinking from a good water filter. I thought, you know, it's got the carbon and then it's got the charcoal. But I learned that these perfluorinated chemicals do not get filtered out unless you get a reverse osmosis filter. So that's when I said, all right, so we need water. How am I going to drink water? I want to go to restaurants in town because they serve you water. They have the ice cubes from the water. I didn't want this. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So that's the key. You want reverse osmosis. And people say, well, that gets rid of the minerals. Folks, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have minerals from food and have all this junk, cancerous causing chemicals, or get your minerals from food? Or you can go a remineralization osmosis, so reverse osmosis, which you can get it remineralized if that's an issue. But I think you can get your minerals from food. So that's basically it. So long story short, I was told I needed to go in biologic infusion, which is in the family of chemotherapy, every 2 weeks for the rest of my life. $14,000 a shot for an infusion. So we're talking $30,000 a month. I was told I had an 85% chance of losing my colon in 1 year. It was the worst case they've ever seen. It was advanced. He said, I'm lucky to last a year with my colon. That was 2.5 years ago, Shemaine, and I'm healthy. I gained my weight back. I went natural because I looked at the cause. I looked for the fire, not the smoke. What caused it? And so many people suffer with autoimmune disease and gut issues and irritable bowel, and they're taking this and taking that. They're not looking at the fire, what's causing it.
So what can you do? Kimberly was asking, first of all, what is a microbiome? And is there some supplement that we can take? And I know I've been taking one, but what can we do to combat? Because let's say you do have reverse osmosis, but you travel and you go out to a restaurant. I mean, you cannot live in a plastic bubble, and even the plastic in the plastic bubble. So, you know, what do we do? What can we do?
Yeah, the big thing is, and I took every potion, lotion, pill, suppository, tea, you name it. I tried, I researched. I mean, I was on a desperate search. And what I learned is this, Shemaine, no matter what I took when I was in the acute phase, I realized that all of those were like the firemen trying to put the fire out of the house, when behind the house, there was a pyromaniac pouring gasoline on the house. So a lot of these great herbs and potions and lotions, and they work, but problem is you got to get rid of that pyromaniac inside. And that pyromaniac is not just from water. That's just one example. It's also in the cookware. You got to be careful because there's PFOAs in there that can wreak havoc on the colon. Then you've got the BPAs, as you mentioned, in plastic. So you've got to be careful of. And then there's certain foods that, you know, antibiotics, we know that wreaks havoc on the gut, right? The reason the word probiotics was even out was to combat diarrhea that you got after taking antibiotics. That's what it originally was for, nothing else. Also, when you got sick overseas and you had diarrhea, they would prescribe probiotics. Now we know it's so much bigger and more advanced. Probiotics are awesome, but you have to get rid of the pyromaniac in the back that's messing up the gut. Otherwise, you'll keep putting out the fire, adding gasoline, putting out the fire. So yeah, there's a lot of great things, and I take them and I love them, but I really had to play detective and say, what is the smoke, not the fire? And that's where you can go through. And one of the biggies that's made news is the glyphosate. Everyone's familiar now with the Roundup. That creates leaky gut. Yeah. And, you know, we hear how great wine is, right? But they found wine 100% in California, 100% was shown to have high levels of glyphosate, as much as 27 times the organic. 100% of all this.
I'm thankful that I don't only drink European wines or wines from Washington, but I just feel like they taste better. So now I'm glad that I've stayed away from California red wines.
Yeah.
So what about the difference between prebiotics and probiotics?
Yeah. Well, interesting, probiotics, and I wrote an article called Everything You Want to Know About Probiotics, and it's at drdavidfriedman.com, and it's everything: how to buy them, the best strain for you, the best strain, how you need to refrigerate it, packaging, best time of the day to take them, because there's so many. You couldn't find that information out, so I put it all in one. And the one thing I'll share is probiotics are great, but they're very, very fragile. They have a hard time making it from the plant through the packaging, through the traveling, through your store, through your house, into the acidic stomach, to your colon. So by the time it does all those steps, a lot of it is gone. It's been destroyed. So there's one that I like, and I think a diversity is the key, but I like SBO, which is soil-based organisms. And the reason those are good, they help support digestion, enzyme production, healthy immune system. SIBO, which is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, is really great with that. The reason I like it is it can handle hot and cold. And it's also in the soil that gives our plants minerals, so it helps minerals transport to the plants like it does to our body. So that one's not as fragile. So when you see the number on the back called CFO, which is colony forming units, you'll see like 1 billion or up to like, I think I've seen 300 billion. None of that is regulated, and that is usually taken before it goes into the bottle. So by the time it gets to your house, that's not the number.
So I'm looking at some of the comments that we have here. There's a lot. People were asking about THC versus CBD oil, and also about kefir yogurt. Here's what I want to tell you. You and I have been going back and forth via email.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a health scare about a month ago where I felt like Mike Tyson punched me in the stomach, and it was constant pain to the point where I had to go to urgent care. And nonstop pain that went through to my back as well. Long story short, I was given a clean bill of health, and I asked the doctors after doing a CAT scan on my stomach, the doctor in the urgent care said, you either have an infection or a malignant tumor. And I remember, like, my husband was, in fact, when he came back to talk to me after doing the test, he said, is your husband here? And that, it kind of sounds scary. So I texted Ted, had him come back to the room so he could hear the doctor's diagnosis that I either had an infection or a malignant tumor, which I know now you can't say that.
Yeah.
At the time, it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And I have a clean bill of health now, but meanwhile, they didn't give me any instructions on what to eat or what to do. I'm feeling much better now. My energy level is a little low, but here's the bottom line, and I think you'll agree with me. You have to become your own investigative sleuth for health. We're all different genetically, and plus there's a gene that we carry within us that makes us predisposed to certain illnesses. And while you're in the same household as your spouse or your kids, you could be sick and they're not, or they're sick and you're not, and you just think, well, they're stressed. We put the word stress on everything and think, well, it's not that bad. I don't have a broken arm. I don't have to go to the hospital. I'll just deal with it. Meanwhile, you're miserable.
Yes, very true.
Am I right? Well, there's just so much that we can talk about. And now that we have it all figured out on how to do this here, I'm so glad. I hope we can do this again. I want you to address CBD versus THC. What are your thoughts on that? And you keep talking. I'll be right back, but keep talking.
Yeah, CBD is it's great. There's a lot of great research on it, but there's so much of it now. Every street corner is CBD, CBDC. I see it. I think I can throw from my office a stone and hit like 9 shops. So you really want to look for a quality. That's the key. You want to find out where it's made. A lot of this stuff could be made in somebody's basement, garage. I like to look for CMP certified. That's General Manufacturing Practice Facility. That means that they're audited. They're accountable. They have to go with the highest quality standards. That way you know that you know what's on the labels inside. inside that's not just some olive oil with the little sprinkles on top. So really, quality is important, because a lot of people will get on the CBD, I didn't see any results. Well, you didn't get the right kind. Maybe it wasn't the highest quality. And that's the key. And I write a whole chapter in my book, Food Sanity, is you really got to play detective, and you want to get in touch with where that is made, just like your food. You've got to play detective on that.
Gary Ackerman says water supply at Camp Lejeune had about 70 chemicals in the water we used for a few years for everything when I lived there. There's a lot of chemicals. My whole family is messed up now. And I was just talking to, well, I don't even want to get into mold. You know how I feel about that. But it is all related, because you do have to figure out, okay, now let's say, David, you had this situation. You became your own investigative sleuth. What are the foods that you are finding work for you? And again, it's probably going to be different for everybody. But what do you think overall are better choices of food for everybody? Yeah,
well, I'll cover the bad ones, because maybe you want to get rid of the pyromaniac in the back that's causing the fire. So address that rather than good, because remember, you can throw the good. Those are the good firemen. They're putting the fire out. But in the backyard, you've got the bad. So we really got to focus on what to eliminate. That's so important. Then comes the good herbs and the probiotics to keep you healthy. Otherwise, it's a constant battle. So the big number one, I would say, would be dairy. That's one that has casein, which is inflammatory.
Okay. I'm raising my hand. Pick me. I have a question. Okay, so dairy, do you consider eggs to be dairy?
No.
Okay. There have been going back and forth. I've heard both ways, but
dairy would be pretty much milk or anything derived from that. Okay. And the reason is it contains casein, which is the protein. And what's the protein for, Shemaine? It's to make a 100-pound calf turn into a 2,000-pound cow. It's designed to blow them up. It's big. It's a molecule that little tiny humans can't break down. It's also used to create glue to hold together wood. Think of the Elmer's glue logo. So when we ingest this glue-like substance, our body attacks it and turns histamines, creates inflammation. So it does mess the gut microbiomes up. Get off of it. So we don't need it. You've got, what am I going to do with my cereal? Almond milk, cashew milk, hemp milk, coconut milk. You've got so many great alternatives. You don't need to drink milk from a cow. So that's one. The big one is the pesticides and herbicides. I can't stress that enough. Everybody says, I can't eat gluten. Let's talk real quickly about gluten.
Yes,
folks. Please. We have been eating gluten for 3.5 million years. That is documented. In fact, the University of Utah shows that 40% of our ancestor caveman diet was gluten-containing grains. So we've been digesting gluten. Our body can break it down. Why all of a sudden now in the last 10, 15, 20 years has gluten become so hard to digest and no one can handle it because it makes them sick, right? The reason is you can't blame gluten. Gluten hasn't changed. It's how we process the gluten, what we're putting on the gluten, the Monsanto Roundup, the glyphosate, the pesticides we eat is creating this inability for us to break down gluten. And when you have something called leaky gut, it means that the colon is actually open and these little pieces of gluten go through into the bloodstream and our body attacks it. That's why gluten's become such an issue. Now, but remember when you used to be able to eat a pizza 20 years ago and have no problem, and now 1-2 bites, right? We get distressed.
Yeah.
Pizza didn't change. Our great-grandparents had to eat pizza and cookies and ice cream, and it didn't affect them like it does us. All these foods that we put blame on, food hasn't changed. It's how we're processing it, how we're cooking it, how we're storing it. Even the plastic containers you put it in could be causing you gut issues with the PBAs or the phthalates. So that's the big thing. So a quick couple tips. We're telling everybody the problems. Look for USDA certified organic on the produce. And I use a rule of thumb. It's actually a rule of thumbnail. If you can get your thumbnail and puncture the skin of the produce, more than likely pesticide residues get inside. So so things like grapes and apples and pears, USDA certified organic. If it's avocado, no issue.
I have to interject because I was in the hospital for 3 days because of food poisoning. And 3 days, that's a long time.
It is,
with an IV and thrown up and all that stuff. And this is one of the reasons, many reasons why I'm here and so passionate about health. Because when you don't have your health, There's nothing that's more important. No money in the world is alluring. You have to have your health. So I found out, I did a test, and the doctor said, "Do you want to find out what caused this?" I found out that the sickness that I was getting was from pesticides in chemicals from grapes from Mexico. Yeah. So if you look at my rule of thumb, and I totally agree with you, if you can puncture it, for me, I pretty much can't eat it unless it's from the United States or Canada. Do you agree?
Yeah. Again, you really
organic. But still, even if it's organic, that's hard to say now because there's so much in our air, soil, and water, like you were talking about. What is it being cleaned with? You know, it's hard to say.
Well,
but
it goes a step further, Shemaine. So now you're at the store, you're buying USDA certified organic produce. And if you stand there long enough, what's going to start spraying on that water from the tap, which has these chemicals? So it's like, what? You can't win, right? You get this organic, beautiful apple, but it's being sprayed with this toxic water. So you're right. So you have to clean it. You got to use a veggie wash. And you're right. You can't just grab organic and trust it. You've got to get the best you can. Speaking
of apples, I did a food sensitivity test because I'm trying to figure out, here I've been in the fitness industry for 40 years. And I remember asking the doctor, well, what can I eat? Because everything, I actually lost weight. And I'm not trying to lose weight, but it gets to the point where you can't eat because it makes you sick. So one doctor encouraged me to do a food sensitivity test. The number one thing that came up that I was allergic to was apples. Then it went on apples, beets, ginger, cauliflower, broccoli. Does this sound like anything that would be hazardous to your health, Dr. Friedman?
No, let me ask you, were you eating those foods a lot prior to the test?
Yes. I juice 4 times a week. Guess what's in the juice? Apples, beets, ginger, carrots, everything that
I did the same thing. It's like everything I've been recently eating, I'm like, what? And the reason is your body creates these little antibodies to go after a lot what's in there. Doesn't necessarily mean that's bad for you, because if you stopped eating those and took that same test a month later, it wouldn't show up as apples.
I can tell you, I've eliminated, another thing was chicken and turkey, and I've completely eliminated chicken and turkey, and apples and beets, and I do feel a heck of a lot better. I am almost back to normal. My energy has been a little bit down, but I feel so much better than I did a month or 2 ago. So I'm going to start including those things back into my diet slowly. But I think it's so important for each and every one of us to become our own investigative sleuth. Number one, get rid of the chemicals and preservatives. Yes. I always say, if you can't pronounce it, it's probably not food. What do you think?
Exactly. Well, I mean, you saw this. I can't even pronounce half the stuff that's in my water. Probably doesn't belong in our beverage, in our body. So yeah, that's the same thing. You know, if you see something on the back and you see phenylhydropropythylaminomide, you're like, I haven't heard that. Let me Google it. And you go, wait a minute. They make that in cement. That's how they make cement. I don't want that in my body. So you're right. We've got to play. Here's the thing. Our great-great-grandparents didn't have to play detective. We do.
Yes.
That's who we should eat like. People say, Doc, should we eat like a caveman and paleo? Should we eat like a gorilla and vegan? And that's what I cover in my book, Food Sanity, is I break through all the fads and fictions, and we talk about all of them. And the key is just get back to health like our great-grandparents. They didn't have this water supply and the plastics, and they didn't have wine. Glyphosate wasn't around. They could just enjoy wine. They didn't have to play detective for the apples, and they didn't have to do the pinch, the nail test. We do. You're right. We really got to get on there and really just play detective. I always say, if you want to know the best thing for healthcare, look in the mirror. You're looking at it.
Yeah. I'm reading these comments. You guys are so amazing. Thank you so much for the kind and positive words. And for you guys being interested, because I would love to have Dr. Friedman back on now that we know how to do this. We just kept restarting and rebooting, but
they wondered when we got on. They go, why do they look so tired? It's just starting. It's no, not for us.
We've been here for an hour trying to get this done. Tell everybody. I'm so excited to be a part of your posse, because I'm going to be the first one to help you promote your book, but tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
Yeah, you can go to drdavidfriedman.com and you can learn all about me and follow me on Twitter and Facebook and so forth. And for the book Food Sanity, How to Eat in a World of Fads and Fiction, you can go to foodsanity.com. And I actually have a free PDF. I didn't have room for recipes, so I created a 92-page ebook where you can find foods to eat, recipes. It's free. Go up on the right corner. It's a compilation, so you kind of want this as a companion to learn about, but I didn't have room for recipes in there. But basically, Food Sanity was my mission of being a syndicated TV and radio health expert. I interviewed all these authors and scientists, and I wanted my audience to get great health information. It didn't happen, Shemaine. Instead, every guest would contradict the next one, leaving everybody more confused. You got the paleo and the vegan and the Mediterranean, all difference of night and day. And what really got me, Shemaine, is, I'm enjoying oatmeal because we've learned that it lowers your blood sugar. And then all these anti-grain people said, oh, it spikes your blood sugar. Get off grain. And coffee caused sickness and disease, and then it became the best health food drink that you can have. And eggs used to cause high cholesterol, and now they said, wait, it has lecithin. It lowers cholesterol. So I wrote Food Sanity to break through all the fads, facts, and fiction and answer the question, what are we supposed to eat? I have no biased B-U-Y. I spell that B-U-Y intense. I don't have any product. All the products that I endorse in here are not affiliated with me. I own a nutritional company. I purposely didn't mention it because I don't want you thinking, oh, that's why he's mentioning it. And I show you to do that, to look at information that's not paid for, that has no ulterior motives. And that's the key in there, is to really take control of your own hand and, just don't go with the latest fad and, these health kicks. It's not the answer.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for persevering and getting on here with me today. I can't wait to have you back again. Let's do this more often because this information that you're sharing is so critical, because if we don't have our health, we don't have anything.
True.
So drdavidfriedman.com, is that right?
drdavidfriedman, .com.
.com, and go into the upper right-hand corner.
That for Food Sanity. That would be for the foodsanity.com if you want to get anything about the book. And then drdavidfriedman.com to read everything you want to know about probiotics. I know we couldn't cover a lot. And gut health, it's all in there in my articles. Feel free to just dive in and learn.
And we didn't even talk about hormones. We got to do that too. There's just so much.
We'll be back.
We should do this like on a regular basis. But I know you're a busy guy.
Now it won't be an hour and a half to log on. It'll be easier.
I know, right? Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I will definitely see you next time. I'll be the first one to help you promote your book.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.